Yes, I admit that this OSAMA the Gun video series has an ulterior motive of a sort, but like all works of art, the ulterior motive also has a higher purpose. At least I'm going to try and persuade you of that right now. Years ago, my then wife, Emily Wood, an excellent novelist, was writing a novel called Looking for the Mahdi, the story of the future of the Middle East, told from the point of view of a female Palestinian-American journalist masquerading as a man in a future Middle East. And she did a lot of research for this novel, and I did a lot of reading behind her. And that's how my interest and knowledge of Arab politics, the Middle East, and all that I have spoken about in here began. Cut to September 11th, 2001. By this time, my marriage to Lee had ended. I was on my own in New York, staying with my former significant other and still best friend in the world, Donna Sadok, in Greenwich Village. I had previously been president of the Science Fiction Writers of America for 2 terms a decade or two previously, and now I found myself president again, and I took Donna to Philadelphia with me to preside over our meeting at the World Science Fiction Convention. And after we came back to New York, I went down to visit my mother in Florida. On the way back, I got stuck at the Fort Lauderdale airport where nothing seemed to be moving for hours. I called Donna to tell her I was going to be late, and she suggested to me that I give up and go back to my mother's house and come back the next day. Something told me that I didn't want to leave that airport till I got out of Florida and back to New York. And that was the night of September 10th. Got back to New York after midnight, crashed out, woke up about 9 o'clock the next morning, looked out the window on 6th Avenue, from which you couldn't see the towers, which are only a mile or two away, I guess. But I could see a crowd looking south on the avenue, which seemed rather odd. So I said, Donna, look at this. And she said, they're always shooting movies here. I called my agent to make an appointment, and I was told he wasn't coming in because of what had happened. And when I was told what had happened, I ran down into the street to see nothing but 2 great big pillars of smoke where the Twin Towers of the World Trade Center had been. Well, the shadow of those 2 missing towers changed the world, changed the United States, changed my life. Donna and I came back together as a couple after all those years. I ended up living back in New York with her. And like many writers, I struggled with the idea of writing a novel that would capture this experience and this change in the world. And I never got anywhere with it. Without going into the gory details, early 2006 found me kind of in a creative doldrums and an economic doldrums too. And Donna suggested that I just try and write a short story to get out of it. So I did. I started writing a first-person narrative that I thought was going to be a short story, told by a young Islamic terrorist on the way to commit the ultimate heinous terroristic act, which I will not describe here. I got about 40 pages into this thing before I realized I wasn't writing a short story. I was writing a novel. The novel that ended up being called OSAMA the Gun. For decades, my practice had been to write a treatment for a novel, get a contract, get some money, and write it. I was broke at this point. I wrote a treatment, and much to my displeasure, was persuaded by my agent to go back and rewrite the first 40 pages so it was a portion and outline. But I couldn't stop. It was an experience unlike anything I'd ever had. This novel took me over. This person, Osama, took me over. And I found I could not stop writing this novel, come what may, until I finished it. And that's how the novel OSAMA the Gun got written. The first 4 installments of this OSAMA the Gun video series are the backstory for OSAMA the Gun the novel, which takes place in the future, in which the new Caliphate has already been brought into being by the sons of Osama bin Laden, an outfit called the Sons of Osama, which is why our hero is named Osama, because it is the second most popular name in this Muslim future next to Muhammad. He's a young kid from the Caliphate who wants to see the world outside this restricted Islamic new empire. He becomes a spy. He gets posted to France. He gets involved in terrorist acts there. He has to flee. He goes on the Muslim Hajj. He becomes a mercenary. He gets involved in a war against the United States in Nigeria, and ultimately involved in a war in Arabia itself between the United States and the new Islamic Caliphate. Well, that's as much of the story as I'm about to reveal. But thematically, this is a story of all the things I've spoken about in these previous videos, plus more. It's a kind of sympathy for the devil for Western and American readers, because this kid Osama, despite all the things he does, is an innocent, idealistic, sympathetic character. And for the Islamic readership, I would love it to have, and I think need to read something like this. It is a meditation through Osama on the differences between true Islam, between mystical Islam, between the Brotherhood of the Hajj and the snake pit and cesspit of Arab and Islamic nationalist politics and American politics too, as usual. Nor does the United States come off in here as either a complete cynical, oil-hungry villain or a heroic nation resisting terrorism. I could not stop writing this book because nobody else was writing anything like this, and I felt and still feel so strongly in my heart that this is a book that needs to be read by both sides of this clash of civilization. Well, this novel has been rejected by over a dozen American publishers so far, most of whom say, oh, what a great writer I am and what a great career I have, but this novel we just feel kind of lukewarm about. Now, if anybody believes that anybody can have a lukewarm reaction to a novel like this, I got a bridge in Brooklyn that I'll be happy to sell to each one of you individually. Now, I've had to fight this sort of battle with publishers before, with Bug Jack Barron, which now everybody wants to make into a movie, with The Iron Dream, which was banned in Germany and won all these awards, with Journals of the Plague Years, which was about AIDS and terrified everybody until it was finally published. So in a way, I'm used to this shit. But OSAMA the Gun is something special. I think this is a novel that has to be read for reasons that transcend my own career or politics. This is a very important book, and I'm really fighting for it. And if you feel that I've been using you with these videos in order to get this book published, well, hell, you're right. But I think there's something somewhere out there that has used me to get this story written and to get it out there. And I find it is not only a mission, but an obligation. So, inshallah, I hope you forgive me for using these videos to attempt to accomplish that necessary end.